Hey everyone, this is the Love of Cinema podcast. We like to talk movies. If you like to talk movies too, you come to the right place.
Very little has been written about her, primarily because she pissed off pretty much everybody she came into contact with. There were no holy cows for Devyani, even though she had this weird obsession with Rajesh Khanna, and many people say that she promoted him at the cost of promoting or at the cost of Amitabh Bachchan.
How are you folks? Welcome back to the Love of Cinema podcast. This is Himanshu, and today we are going to talk about a very special woman. The expression frankly speaking has an entirely different connotation for fans of Hindi cinema and readers of entertainment magazines from a certain era. If you fancy film gossip, history of film gossip, or writing film gossip, you do not want to miss today's episode. We are going to talk about a woman who wielded a lot of power. A woman whose gossip columns in film magazines were eagerly anticipated by the readers for their juicy scoops and dreaded by the stars themselves for their bluntness and insider information they divulged. Devyani Chaubal, or Chaubal, which would be the more authentic pronunciation of her name in Marathi, was a gossip columnist who wrote for film magazine Star and Style and a women's magazine called Eve's Weekly. Her column has become an integral part of Bollywood folklore. Titled Frankly Speaking, the column granted her poison pen a license to kill. A column which never shied away from political incorrectness or gave a damn about anyone's feelings. It was pure, unadulterated gossip in its full glory. And since she enjoyed a rather unique access to many stars, it was often too authentic, too close to comfort for many stars. Chaubal is widely acknowledged as a pioneer in use of a particular flavor of language, which would later become known as Hinglish, essentially English with an healthy mix of colloquial Hindi words. In a sense, though, she was more than a gossip columnist. You'll see how she was almost a one-woman PR machine. Chaubal had a peculiarly interesting love-hate relationship with Rajesh Khanna, one of Bollywood's biggest and most charismatic superstars. In fact, the word superstar, in the context of a film star from Hindi cinema, was first used by and popularized by Chaubal herself. She was the first person to refer to Rajesh Khanna as a superstar in one of her columns. The only video footage of this fascinating woman you can find is from a BBC documentary on Rajesh Khanna titled Bombay Superstar. You can find it on YouTube. I would recommend watching it for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's probably the only video footage there is which shows Rajesh Khanna at the peak of his stardom, fully drunk on his stardom, which itself is the most fascinating, to experience in the form of moving images as opposed to reading about it. Secondly, there are also some portions where we get a glimpse into who Chaubal was as a person. She is featured on this documentary as one of the people interviewed about Rajesh Khanna. Always dressed immaculately in a white sari, you can sense an enigmatic aura about her. Even in a documentary where the focus is on a charismatic superstar who features front and center, Chaubal is able to leave an indelible mark in the few scenes she is featured in, with her nonchalant style and sharp words. There is an unmistakable air of mystery about her. On today's episode, I was joined by Suparna Sharma to talk about Devyani, or Devi, as she was popularly known. Suparna is a film critic and the resident editor at the Asian Age, and has covered films for more than a decade. Suparna is in the midst of researching a book on Devyani Chaubal, and was kind enough to share with us some very interesting tidbits about Chaubal. We talked about Chaubal's significance, the power she wielded, her episodes with Hema Malini, Dharmendra, Bachchan, Dilip Kumar, and her tragic last few years. Here's our chat. Hey, so could you give us a quick intro to who Devyani Chaubal was and the publications she worked for, the magazines she worked for?
Right. So Devyani Chaubal was a gossip writer. Sorry, a Bollywood gossip writer who basically came into her own in this magazine called Star and Style. Uh, and its sister publication, Eve's Weekly. She later had a regular column in Eve's Weekly. And she was one of the first women gossip writers in India. It was absolutely pure, bitchy, unadulterated gossip. That's what she wrote. It was very well reported, her stories, but her style of writing was a mix of English and Hindi, and she was again a pioneer in that, which was what we call Hinglish. While she would write, she would use a lot of Hindi words, Hindi phrases, etc. And it was very, it was her writing was very sharp. It was bitchy, and it was very strict. It was hugely entertaining. And so her column, frankly speaking, by Devi is what it eventually got called, was people would buy that magazine, literally just immediately go to that column, because it would give them so much insight into the private lives of the stars, who was sleeping with whom, who had broken up with whom, was fighting with whom, everything. It was completely no holds barred, and if she went after somebody, she really went after them. So that's Devyani Chaubal for you.
Now, most of my generation has discovered her through that wonderful Rajesh Khanna documentary done by BBC, Bombay Superstar.
Right.
And there are a few scenes in that where, I at least for the first time got a glimpse of her. And, even with those portions from that documentary, you can tell that here is a person who has a presence about her, because the documentary is arguably on the most charismatic stars ever in Bollywood history. And even in those small portions where she makes the appearance, she kind of steals the show. You know.
Yeah, well, so one of the she had many quirks, and one of her quirk was she would always dress in white. Some people attribute that to Raj Kapoor's fascination for white. Some people attribute to her Devyani's own sort of obsession in a way with Meena Kumari, and she would even do this little ringlet in her hair, which was very Meena Kumari style. So this whole always wearing white was kind of a signature look of Devyani. And she was very well educated. She was from a very well to do family. They were connected to the royal family of Gwalior in some way. And she was brought up in a very modern kind of a setting, and she spoke very fluent English. She wrote very well. Yeah, sorry, just repeat your question. I've kind of forgotten your
Oh, no,
question.
no, no. This is all good information. I was just saying, that you can tell
She
by now, for
stands out. Yeah.
example, there is a line in that documentary where she says, she's talking about Rajesh Khanna, and she says, in a very gossipy kind of a way that seven pegs at one party and seven more at another. And then he called me. And you can tell that, she's a gossip writer at heart, but there's much more to her that, probably we don't know about, probably you know about, but that a lot of people don't know about. And I'm trying to get to the crux of that.
So what happened is that this is my assessment. She is no longer, she died in very tragic circumstances. Uh, and it very little has been written about her, primarily because she pissed off pretty much everybody she came into contact with. There were no holy cows for Devyani, even though she had this weird obsession with Rajesh Khanna, and many people say that she promoted him at the cost of promoting, or at the cost of Amitabh Bachchan, and she was the one who gave him that um, superstar title as well. And
Ah, interesting.
yeah, and I mean the magazine did, and I think that piece was written by her because I think there was no byline in that piece, so it's now very difficult to tell who wrote it. But the style and everything was hers, and she so as her column grew, as her popularity grew, she got more and more access, and when she got more access, she wielded that power. She was in touch with some people in the underworld as well, in the sense of, because everybody wants to be in a Bollywood film. So Haji Mastan also acted in a film, and I think he produced a film, and she had meetings with him. She would, if a star was down and out and needed funds, she would connect people. She she wielded her power in that sense, and she became very important. She would often be like, no, there would not be any party without an invite going out to her. And when she would walk in, and often she would walk in always very dramatic fashion. So I remember once someone telling me that she walked into this really big, very formal, fancy party carrying her sandals in her hand, like, on a finger. And and so it was always for an impact. It was always being like, okay, you may be the superstars, like, but I'm still a diva, you know
Right,
so
right.
and she used it. I have never heard anything that she got for herself. She was single, she never owned a house. At the end, when she needed a house, she lived in a hostel, in the sports hostel in Bombay. She rented a room there. That's the only place she had. So I have never heard her taking advantage of anything, or her power ever. but yes, she liked the power. She liked exercising it. She liked having it. She liked exuding it. So she enjoyed. She tripped on her own status.
Correct. And what roughly were the years of her operation? Like, was she writing in the 60s as well? Because I know she was writing in 70s and
Yeah, I think she was in. She was a very junior. I think at uh, because there are no bylines. It's very difficult to figure that out. And I've tried to research her life a lot, and even now people are pissed off, and nobody wants to talk about her, which is
the
so.
grudges have a life of their own. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've had, like, I remember I went and met Dharmendra, and I said, "Aapse baat karna hai, I want to talk to you about Devyani." And he was so warm, and he was so welcoming, and he was so nice, and he was talking to me about his own career and work. And the moment I mentioned Devyani Chaubal, he just, like, he did this namaste gesture to me, and he said,
That's
"All I
it.
will say is, yeah, all I will say is she should have taken care of herself." And I was like, but I want to know, because there was this big episode with you and you chased her. There was a police case and everything. He just he didn't say anything. He just, like, did this namaste and said, like, "Thank you, bye bye, please go away."
Now, I'm aware of that episode, but could you tell our listeners about what exactly happened between Sandra and her, that altercation?
Right. So, again, it's because it's all in the realm of gossip, and that's how it should be taken. She wrote a column, her regular, frankly speaking, column, and there was a party, because I think it was it was a fortnight. The magazine was every fortnight, and in that she wrote about a party where Hema Malini had come and was maybe not, dressed up and decked up, whatever, the way I guess she expected, or she was just like, normal, like her hair was a little all over the place and whatever. So in her column, Devyani wrote, sorry, and that was a time when Dharmendra and Hema Malini were having an affair. And so Devyani wrote in her column that Hema Malini was looking like last night's stale idli sambar or something, right? And idli
That didn't go
sambar,
down well with Dharmendra,
yeah.
right?
And so there was, I think, at the race course, the day after or 2 days after the column appeared, somewhere near the race course at Mahalakshmi in Bombay, Dharmendra caught sight of her and he said, I will beat you, or I will show you, and how dare you. And he chased her and she ran. And, and I remember in some report there was like some trucks lined up and she was like trying to hide and whatever, and he chased her. And then eventually she went to a police station and registered a complaint. And I mean, I don't think he got to her. I don't think he actually hit her. And I don't think he would have actually hit a woman, because I don't think Dharmendra is that kind of a guy. But he must have been livid. He's also a very Punjabi, very virile man. And but the funny thing is that their association, Devyani and Dharmendra's association, goes back to the first time when he came, and Devyani wrote these pieces on these profiles and interviews of Dharmendra, which really created this profile of this, Jat Punjabi boy who is, well, again, very virile, because there was a lot of like how sexually active he is. And so she really kind of contributed to this image of Dharmendra at that point. And now this relationship was totally collapsing because she had just written some bitchy thing, and Dharmendra, being Dharmendra, couldn't take it. So that was the episode. I think it dragged on for a bit and then it just died its own, life. So
Right. It's interesting that, it almost sounds like she was a gossip columnist for sure, but she was also like a one-man PR machine for some of the stars back then.
Yes. See, there were very few magazines at that time, and this is a world before the social media explosion. I mean, years, decades before that. So there were these print magazines. There was Filmfare, which I think was a really big one at that point. Then there was Star and Style. There was Screen as well. But basically, these two were the big magazines. And then came Stardust after some years. And then came Cinebliss much later. So at that time, there were pretty much these two magazines, these two film magazines, which and Filmfare, pretty much early in its life, be a very pro film industry magazine, in the sense that it would. I remember reading something which Filmfare kind of pretended was gossip. I remember reading this piece about these actresses in the late 60s going out on a, like a little picnic, and there were 4 5 of these big top actresses at that time. They had wrapped up some shoot of theirs, and they were carrying booze, obviously. But the way Filmfare reported it was like, and in these glass bottles of alcohol, these women were just carrying some nimbu pani or water, or so they were always trying to present this Sati Savitri. Oh my
The
God, these
sanitized
women are
version, yeah.
yeah, and very deliberately projecting like a very quote unquote moral good women image, whereas this Star and Style was like going all out. And if somebody was drunk, they would just say that, I remember reading about in Star and Style about this I'm forgetting this actress's name who played Jay Santoshima which is one of the biggest hits of that decade. This film called Jay Santoshima, and I think her name was Guha. She was an Assamese actress, and she would drink. She drank at parties and she would cover her glass with a tissue paper. So and I remember reading about that in Star and Style, that she drank. Jay Santoshi Ma was drinking at a party.
Anita
And
Guha, right?
right, yes, thank you so much. And uh, and uh, 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 but Filmfare was the other extreme. It would just pretend like, oh no, these women only, they don't touch alcohol and they are all like very proper and whatever its own notion of morality was. So it was just, censoring, editing, fictionalizing pretty much the lives of these stars. Whereas Star and Style, at least to the extent they could, it was presenting it the way it was. If it was ugly, it told you it was ugly. If it was fun and bitchy and these women got drunk or they were having affairs, it just told you that. So, so the attraction was very different. It was more vicarious. It was more real. It was more entertaining. Whereas Filmfare became a little boring and academic almost.
And who were the respective editors at this time of the two magazines?
Filmfare, I'm not sure because they kept changing, but I remember there was a time and I think that is when Filmfare peaked, especially in its reviews. Was I don't know if you recall this actor called K.N. Singh.
Oh, yes, of course, yes.
Right. So K.N. Singh, who was also a master's in English himself, this his brother was editing Filmfare at one point, and that's when Filmfare's film reviews became very, very popular because he really focused on it, and suddenly film reviews became a thing, which was not the case before that. So I don't remember who, but Star and Style editor was this woman called uh, uh, Edwin. Give me a minute; it'll come back to me.
Sure, sure. No, no
Uh,
worries.
she's now in. Well, last I checked, she was in the UK and not very well. Uh, but the name will come back to me. So
Sure, sure. And where did Film India figure into this? Because I know Baburao Patel had a similar kind of a column, right? Editor's Mail, and that used to be fairly, sharp-tongued. And was he still around during this time that Chaubal was
I
writing?
think there was, yeah, I think there was some overlap of time, but Babu Rao's magazine became very political after independence. And I remember when I was researching, even his editorials were kind of addressed to Jawaharlal Nehru.
Yes, yes. I think there's
And
a long history he had, right? He was fairly outspoken about Nehru.
yes, yes, and so it became very political very early, and so in the film, though earlier he would be all gossipy and writing about the pre-partition well, not Bollywood, if whatever, the film industry at that time. And because there was a lot happening in Lahore also at that time, and a lot of actresses came from there. A lot of them were Muslim who had come from there. So there was but eventually after independence, I think he had political aspirations, and he saw himself as kind of this journalist who had serious ideas to contribute, who had a very solid critique of the government and what it was doing, etc. So it became less a film magazine and more a political magazine over time, and it also became a bit boring because it became more like a rant. And I remember reading some of their film columns, which became like columns addressed to the industry, in the sense of who's producing what film, who's putting in money where, which actors
It's more like a
signed up
trade
for.
magazine, right?
Right, yeah. So that, that, I mean, it lost its charm.
I see. Now, going back to Chaubal, you told us about that anecdote about Dharmendra. Any other anecdotes, interesting anecdotes that you could share quickly? Anything with Bachchan or any of the big stars in 70s?
I think Bachchan never gave well, I think Bachchan tried. Uh, I don't know whether this incident is true or not, because again, it's in the realm of gossip and you don't know what, who's telling what with what agenda. But while I was researching, I remember someone telling me who used to work with Devyani Chaubal how Amitabh Bachchan once came with his photographs to meet Devyani Chaubal in the office. And those were typewriter days and whatever, and he sat there and he tried to push his own story, and this is who I am, etc., etc. And I think she eventually may have done something or not done, but uh, I remember this person telling me that later she apparently told Rajesh Khanna, you have to be careful of this man. Uh, uh, he will be your big competition.
Right,
So
right. I can remember reading about that somewhere, maybe in one of Yasir Usman's books. I think he has mentioned that she was kind of an early, she kind of warned, so to speak, Rajesh Khanna about the science, about Bachchan's appeal and everything.
yes, yes, and because she was so aligned with Rajesh Khanna's success, she had invested so much in it.
She was looking out for him.
Yeah, she was, while being a kind of an independent journalist, but her, yeah, her loyalties, if it came to this, I mean, if she had to write about Rajesh Khanna's gossip, she would just, go all out and just gossip about him. But if when it came to Rajesh Khanna versus another actor, then she stood with Rajesh Khanna.
And how was her rapport with some of the female superstars?
Pretty bad, I think, and especially the big ones, the big actresses, because she didn't spare anyone. But I think the her from what I have understood, her big network of gossip was, of course, people on the sets, the lower down the rung. Those were her sources. But more than that, and this is my uh, analysis or conjecture, whatever you may call it, the wives of producers. Her big sources of information of who was sleeping with whom was the wives of all the big producers. And at that time, there was an actual association of producers' wives. They would meet every once in a while. I have no idea to do what. Maybe just a kitty
Oh,
party
wow,
or
I
something.
didn't know about this. Okay.
Right. And they would actually like sit and have an agenda. And I've been trying to get my hands on some of that, but I've not been able to. I've not been successful. Um, but they would have these meetings quite regularly, and Devyani reported on some of these meetings, and the reports are uh, they're fascinating, absolutely, because I remember one where she went, and so the meeting has been convened, so all the producers, the wives of big producers, are sitting behind a table, and there are notepads and water and little pens or pencils or whatever, and the meeting has just begun, and some journalists are sitting, and so I but then what happens is that somebody brings a phone, like it's in a hotel. This meeting was taking place in a hotel, and somebody brought a phone. I mean, those are those big black phones, if you recall, the one that you dial and whatever. And so I think uh, B.R. Chopra's wife or something, who was the president at that time of this Producers Wives Association, she got a call and she had to rush. So the meeting was called off. So so I was just fascinated by these women who were just wives of producers and had their own thing going, and they would address journalists. So I think there was a lot of um, uh, inside information that these women had, which they shared with Devyani.
Wow. I mean, you can tell that she certainly had a skill for building relationships. I mean,
Oh,
because I'm
yes.
wondering why these wives of producers would make her privy to the information that they're sharing at their kitty parties. So there
Well,
must certainly be a strong relationship. Or it could be because it in turn is going to help the films.
no, I don't think there were much. I mean, surely there's always commercial interest, but the point is that, and this is what I really believe. Whatever morality the world, the middle class India or upper class India or lower class India has, Bollywood has its own morality. Uh, uh, so where sleeping around is not a big deal, where people getting attracted to each other and having an affair, which at that point seems like, oh my God, this is it, happens all the time between married people, one married, one single, whatever. So, and these producers' wives who actually have no role to play, right? They are just the wives of producers. They're rich, they're important in that sense at parties, but they really don't have a role. So their only power is this inside information. And so it is an exercise of that power of these women to count for something, to have access to a journalist, a big name journalist. So it's everything is a power game, right? Everybody's trying to draw some power from wherever they can, and I don't think they were basically doing it to remain relevant and interesting, and bitch, basically to bitch.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. That dynamic is definitely there.
Right.
Well, now here's an important point that I wanted to talk to you about. Now we are talking about 70s, early 80s, maybe. When exactly did she pass away?
I think she passed away somewhere in 85, 87.
Okay, so
Uh,
around mid 80s.
yes, and but she was not working for about 10 years before she died because she had a stroke and she was paralyzed.
Okay.
And yeah, and that part of her life is just deeply, deeply tragic. So
Right, right. So I'm imagining, she was essentially operative during the early 70s and the mid 70s. And
yes.
in an absolutely patriarchal, male-dominated industry like Bollywood, here was a woman who, wielded so much power. And like we said, she was not just a gossip columnist, but she was pretty much like a one-man PR machine. And this is bound to rub some people the wrong way, and especially because of her being a woman. And I'm thinking that there must have been a lot of backlash and pushback, and trying to displace her from a place of power.
Yeah, so basically what happened, so one of her big breaking stories in her career, well, one was that she outed Rajesh Khanna and Tina Munim's affair. Then the other big story, the biggest story I think of her career, was that Dilip Kumar had a second marriage. Now that's a story she got from wherever she got it, and she tried to sell it to, or her magazine refused to publish. I don't know what happened internally, but she was told it would not be published because, I mean, you have to understand what Dilip Kumar was at that point. It is like saying Jawaharlal Nehru has a hidden wife somewhere. you
Right.
know so Dilip Kumar was like the epitome of, like he's it, he is the,
He's the heartthrob, right? No, no doubt.
not just the heartthrob, he is the Maryada Purushottam, he is the Ram, he is the, he's married Saira Bano, he takes care of all his sisters, he takes care of his family, etc. And he's Yusuf, but his name is Dilip Kumar, and he plays Devdas, and he's tragic and he's sad and whatever. He's a colossal. He's a huge thing. He's a big shit in Bollywood, in the Bombay film industry. Uh, I mean, films were written for him, and also as purely as an actor. I mean, even now. I mean, his acting. I mean, his the best of his work. I mean, nobody can touch him. He's so fabulous. So at that point, for someone to, and she had ready access to his house. She would go for all their, they would have many, because he took care of his sisters, and it was a big family. Dilip Saab's family, and so she was very friendly with one of the sisters, and she would keep going there. And often when Dilip Kumar was in the house, he would come out and see her off. It was that kind of a warm relationship that they had. It was not formal. It was very friendly, and like she's part of some extended family. For her to then, when he's married to Saira Bano, for her to then write this story that Dilip Kumar has a hidden wife somewhere in Hyderabad or wherever it was. I mean, that's a big, big, big deal. And so I think her magazine must have freaked out. Like, no way are we touching this story. And so what she did, she went to Delhi, and there was this Urdu film magazine which was run by the Sadia Dehelvi family, and she gave it to them. And so they ran the story, and once they ran it, everybody had to run it. And then it eventually did appear in wherever it did, with interviews of that woman, etc. And I think that shut many doors for Devyani Chaubal. That one story, it definitely, she was a persona non grata in Dilip Kumar's house for sure. After that,
She
and
had overstepped.
yeah, well, according to them, but she was a journalist, so in my opinion, she had
Oh,
not at all.
absolutely. Right, right. According to them, she had overstepped. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the nature of this job, right? Till you write things which kind of border on PR, everybody's happy with you. The moment you go and do some real stuff, um, people get pissed off, and that's the nature of it. I mean, nothing unique about this. This is what any good journalist who will pursue some stories, they'll face the same thing. So, and I think that's part of the journalists understand that they
It's the nature of the beast. Yeah.
right, and they will talk about it because it's a good story to tell an audience after getting drunk. But that's it. That's how it is, and these relationships get formed. And I think it's also important for journalists and for that's whoever they are talking to understand that journalists will always remain journalists. They are only after a story. you know Beyond a point, you may be whatever, whoever you are, but if they get a story, then sorry.
Right. I mean, that's their job, though. I mean, that's the job. And if you
Right.
want to
And,
get
and
that
that's,
scoop,
yeah,
the story, whatever you want to call it.
and journalists are in a way megalomaniacs. Most of them are. They love seeing their byline, they love seeing their name out there, they love being talked about. So they will put their work themselves above everyone. So
It's a power trip, right? Right.
yes, of course, yeah.
Now, Anju Mahindru's character in Dirty Picture, you think that had shades of Chobal?
I don't think it had shades. I think it was purely Chaubal.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Well, then it's also very interesting because, especially given the subtext between Anju Mahindru and Rajesh Khanna.
Yes, and Anju Mahindru is kind of still fond of, one of the few people who actually spoke to me about Devyani. Mm, and she's very bright, Anju, and she has suffered a lot in the film industry because of Rajesh Khanna's weird obsession with her. Um I mean, he destroyed her first film. So I think she was just such an interesting choice to play that because of their own story of their her connect with Devyani, her own life, the way it's been impacted not just by Rajesh Khanna but the stories that Devyani wrote, like the wedding story, Rajesh Khanna's wedding story, how he deliberately took the barat from outside Anju Mahindru's house. I mean, how sadistic must the man be to do that? Yeah, I think it was a very 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 interesting choice, and Anju Mahindra, I think she's a very talented actress, and she has a very nice screen presence, and I was really glad that she got this opportunity to kind of register her thing in this story.
Yeah, I
In
think
this real
I too
story.
think she's fairly undersung as an actress.
Yeah.
How was her relationship with Devyani?
I think uh, uh, from what I recall and what I understand is that Devyani was actually friends with her mother, who was a working woman in that era, and because I think she was Anju Mahindra started with some under 16 modeling type. She was very 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 young when she came into the film industry, and so her relationship with Anju Mahindra was more of an aunt and more of an elderly, journalist or acquaintance of the family or something. So I don't think they had a lot of direct, because you can imagine there is a journalist who's doing all this and there's a 16-year-old girl. So what kind of relationship will they really have? But she was very close to Anju Mahindra's mother.
And now, if you were to cast somebody in as Chaubal in a show that was supposed to be made today, uh, any suggestions for that kind of casting
I've been
from
thinking
present day
about
actors? Yeah.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this for a long time, and maybe that's the trouble with all these biopics, because because you can never get it right, and nobody can, because I think more than looks, this role would need a personality, uh, and as of now, I don't know. I mean, I can think of great actresses, who can play Devyani, who will do a very good job of it, but I don't know. I
Can
wish
you give us a
just
couple of names?
well, uh, I'm very bad. It takes me a while for names to come up. Sekri, what's the name of that actress?
Oh, the
Uh,
Sunanda
Surekha
Surekha,
Sekri.
sorry.
Yeah, I think Surekha Sekri would be interesting. Though, I mean, it's horrible to say this, but I think she is maybe a little older than what Devyani was at that time.
Right.
Mm, I really can't think of anyone else. I mean, can you think of anyone? Have you thought
Yeah, I was
of some
thinking,
ideas?
I don't know. I kept on seeing Vidya Balan in, as her for some reason. I don't know why.
Well, because Vidya Balan does have a personality and does have, but I think Vidya Balan projects more than she acts. So for me, that makes it a little fake for me. So the difference in projecting and acting, like
Right.
Dilip Kumar acts, but Salman Khan projects, right? Um, so I find Vidya Balan, yeah, but I know what you mean. She's a personality and she has a presence. So yeah, I think for lack of any other ideas, let's go with
All right. All right.
that.
That's great.
I
Now,
think Nina Gupta
yeah, please
actually
go ahead.
would. Sorry, I thought Nina Gupta would be
Yes. I was going to ask you that
uh, would be an
next.
excellent choice because she can act. I mean, she can hold, And she has a warm side, and she can transform.
Yes, and
So
she's also another person who definitely has a presence.
yeah, yeah. So I think Neena Gupta would be just the probably, or even Taboo, because she can act, because she can project up. I mean, she can be someone. So I think Taboo would also be
Yeah, that was a nice suggestion too. Yeah.
very interesting choice. Of course, they would all look very different from what Devyani looked like, but
Right, it's difficult because since, like you said, she operated for a very, limited number of years. We are
yeah,
looking at that particular image of hers. But those are
right,
interesting choices.
yeah.
Now, a couple of recommendations I wanted to ask you. A good book or a film that covers this kind of time from the Bombay film world, or maybe not even this time, but just in general that you have read or seen recently.
Okay, so one book I respect a lot for its research and its and what all has gone into it is this book called Bollywood: A History by Mihir Bose.
Okay.
Um, it's it
Does
it's
it cover
not
a particular
it
time in the
covers,
industry or?
yeah, from the beginning to a certain period, but it gives you a very good idea of what this industry was about, what were its issues, and who were the personalities. It's a very, very well reported, well researched, uh, nicely, neatly written book. I would not say it's like a page turner. It's not very pacey. It's not, given the subject, I would have liked it to be a little more mm, uh, uh, the writing style to be different. But then I guess a man is writing it versus a woman. So that's one book I highly, highly recommend.
Okay.
Ap- Apart from that, there is this compilation of articles which is also very nice, writings on Bollywood, called The Greatest Show on Earth. It has some very nice pieces. Then there is Yasir's book on Rajesh Khanna, which I think is one of the best books, capturing not just the star but also that period. Uh,
Yes.
uh,
Yes, I've
uh,
read that book. Yeah. Yeah.
right. Nasreen Muni Kabir's books are quite nice,
Very
but
nice. Yes.
yeah, they are. I find them very, very interesting. I don't know if you've but the other books. I mean, I'm sorry. Mostly, I find books on Bollywood, including like Jerry Pinto's book on Helen, and or Vinod Mehta's book on Meena Kumari, and so bad, so bad, so bad. They're not worth the paper they're printed on. It's just so bad.
Have you read the recent book on Smita Patel?
No, and I'm very wary because I believe that we are dealing with a popular mainstream film industry, and how we convey this industry has to be in a language that that industry speaks, whether in their films or in real or whatever, to make it. And I believe that it must be researched very, very, very well. But when you write it, it has to be fun. It has to be engaging. It's the Bombay film industry, for God's sake. You can't make it so boring and
It
academic.
has to be
Please.
accessible, right?
Yes, more than accessible. It has to like lift me. It has to entertain me. I mean, that's the job of a writer. Please spend
And you
five
get a
years.
feeling that most of the writing is too academic.
Everybody, yeah, and they think. I think there is this misconception somewhere that you will be taken less seriously if you don't write in a certain way, in a certain style, and I find that kind of really annoying and a waste of my time to pick up these books and then say Helen was born in so and so year, and then she did this dance, and please, yeah, we were told.
Right. Yeah, that's when I did my episode with Yasir Usman. We were talking that it usually falls into two buckets. One is where it's kind of under researched and it's not fully baked, so to speak. And then the second bucket is it's so academic that it's not accessible, and it takes the whole fun away from it.
Yeah,
So
and you're absolutely right. Not just academic, it is theorizing, right? And of course there is space for theories. Of course there is space for why is India telling itself only these 4 5 stories about, one story which is completely Ramayana, one story which is completely Mahabharat, one story which is about separation, brother, sister, whatever, they are separated and then they will meet again. So why are we telling all these stories to ourselves constantly? And there is a real academic work to be done there to research that why do these 4 5 stories appeal to Indians so much. Uh, but I mean, you also, popular culture has its own connect, and you can't just go back to your old theories, your left theories, your Marxist theories, or, about the world and the worldview, and ignore the connect that is happening now, ignore the new things that are happening now. And that I find kind of stilted, that you have these theories, now you're just going to apply them to this, to what is happening. So I also don't find it, like, there's nothing new there, even in very academic writing. uh, I find it a bit dull.
yeah, I agree with you. There is this sense of like forced fitting, kind of like you said. It's like trying to fit into these set theories that you have, and
Yeah,
to kind of.
yeah, like if I tell you, for example, that India loves telling itself, the story of two brothers who get separated in a mela, in whatever, at birth, in the hospital, which is like repeatedly we are telling ourselves this story. And if I ask you, why do we like doing that? I mean, you will come up with the answer in 1 second, right? It's because of partition. And that's it. Now, how many times must we read this again and again and again, and books be devoted to this? So yeah.
All right. And now, when is your book coming out? So,
Oh my
you're writing
God,
this
that's the
book on
question
Devyani
I
Chaubal.
dread. I have I don't know if there's a word for it, when writers think, when they are researching and they think, I spent 6 months researching this book, this character, Devyani, and more than another 6 months reading her pieces. And the only sense I have right now is I have done nothing. I don't know anything. And how can I write about a person's life by, researching it for 1 year? So I have to go back to my research, and that's what I'm planning to do this year. So I don't know.
It's in the
Uh,
works.
yes, it's been in the works forever, and I don't know what will happen, but let's see.
And are you finding a lot of material about her in the archives, like,
Not at
or
Nothing. There is nothing. There is absolutely nothing.
so? How are you going about your research? By talking with
So
people?
yeah, well, talking to people, I'm basically basing a lot of my my understanding of her from her writing, because that's where she puts herself out the most, in the most honest, visceral kind of a way. So a lot of my sense of Devyani is from her own writing. The second source is people who knew her. But again, not many people want to talk about her. I mean, she's been dead for like 30 years. They still don't want to talk about her. So,
And why
and
is that? I don't understand. Like, why would that be?
they just still pissed off.
It's very
That's it.
strange, yeah. That because if they're still holding a grudge, which is very strange too. I mean, if for some person who has passed away 30 years ago.
Well, I told you about Dharmendra. I mean, he's Dharmendra, for God's sake. But he doesn't want to talk about it. I mean, I don't. But that is, and in a sense, when I met these people, who kind of shut the door on me in a sense, I also realized how difficult it must have been for Devyani to actually extract and get this information and get these stories and be so devoted to this job of getting the real masala gossip out about these lives who they are trying to protect so much, their image, their their kind of affairs, information about all this. They try and guard it so well, um, and yet to be able to put it out there every fortnight. I mean, so it also gave me a sense of what she was dealing with, so quite intimidating.
Right. And for our listeners, are her columns, frankly speaking, and are they available somewhere online where people can read them?
No, not really. I don't think anybody's compiled them. And the problem is that she wrote in Eve's Weekly and Star and Style. And apart from the film archives in Pune, nobody really has. Star and Style still exists, not the complete from when it started to when it finished. Nobody has the complete collection of Star and Style. So, and Eve's Weekly, no library has it. I have checked with the archives, I have checked at Asiatic, I have checked at Nehru Library here. Nobody has Eve's Weekly. Nobody has bothered to keep those magazines. So it's
Wow.
really too personal. I have actually bought online on eBay, etc. I have actually had to pay like hundreds of dollars for just one column of Devyani because somebody just has a particular issue of Eve's
A
Weekly.
copy of, right.
Yeah, and they are. Then I contact them and I ask them, "Do you have? Is this lady's column there?" And then they say they check, and then they say yes, and then I actually pay and get these wherever I can. But it's so scattered and it's really like my luck or whatever. So it's really, and that's one of the reasons why I feel like I'm not ready to write. How can you write about a person's life when the research in a sense is so sketchy? So
Right. Well, I really hope that you find all the material you need. And I'm really looking forward to this book because ever since I've seen that documentary, I want to read more about this woman.
how interesting. Thank you so much. And I hope I actually do get down to writing it rather than just ranting about it.
Please do. Please do.
Right.
Thanks a lot, Suparna. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you so much. It was great fun.
What a fascinating woman Chaubal was. It is especially remarkable how much power she enjoyed, given the time during which she wrote. I can't wait to read more about her in Suparna's book. Our podcast is now widely available on all major platforms. If you like this episode, do consider subscribing to our podcast. Also, if you could, please do drop us a review. It would be much appreciated. You can follow me on Twitter at loveofcinemasf8 for podcast-related updates and my tweets on all things movies. This is Himanshu, and I'll be back next week with another brand new episode. Thank you for listening to the Love of Cinema podcast.